untied. You look so pretty, yeah, you look so pretty, yeah, you look so pretty with your hair untied. You look so pretty, yeah, you look so pretty, yeah, you look so pretty with your hair untied.
I am not feeling like myself lately. Little things shouldn't take me away, and it feels like I'm only a statue of sin, torn apart grain by grain in the wind. And I know
Good afternoon, Tere. I am George Kent. I'm the U.S. Ambassador here in Estonia. And thank you for joining us for a panel on the green transition and making it accessible to everyone. So we will eventually have a panel of 3 speakers representing government, society, and business communities. One of our panelists from the Tallinn City government is going to be a little bit delayed. And so we're going to start out with our first 2 panelists, and I'll let them self-introduce, starting on my left with Sven. Sven.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. In short, I would introduce myself as accessibility enthusiast, I think. But in a bit longer way, I would say that I work as a disability specialist and counselor in Tallinn University of Technology, and also I am busy in a few NGOs and in a rehabilitation team in Põlva Hospital. So I like to keep busy. But as I said, accessibility is a very hot and important topic for me, because sometimes, in short, I would say that I am a firm believer of obstacle-free environment, since all we see around us is man-made environment. But also this environment is closely connected to carbon footprint. So this is why the accessibility and green transition is so important topic.
Thank you, Sven. And Larissa, would you like to self-introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. My name is Larissa Shabunova. I'm Managing Director for Fortaco Estonia company located in Narva. This company is a part of Fortaco Group, which consists of 13 different factories located mostly in Europe, but also we have a representation office also in India. We are engaged in heavy industry, which is basically perceived as a dirty industry, but this is not the fact. And today in our discussion, I will be very glad to discuss the green initiatives, what basically the heavy industry is engaged in. Also, I am honorary Finnish consul and working in tight collaboration with Finnish embassy, and I represent Narva and Idaviru region and connect this region with Finnish embassy. And also I am an active member of Business Professional Women Association, and I'm the part of Narva Women Club. So I also would like to discuss today the topics which we discuss in our Women Association, which are connected to green ideas and green practices.
Thank you, Sven and Larissa. Just to initially begin setting the stage, and I will try to keep my talking to a minimum. When we talk about the green transition, It's generally focused on transiting our economies away from carbon-heavy economies to renewable, sustainable energy. And I should have said, anyone sitting up front is welcome to come back behind us on stage to stay dry as it starts to rain. We will still look out this way, even if no one's sitting here, because this is where the television cameras are. And now we have our third panelist. So I'm going to hold off with the introduction of the topic and let Johanna self-introduce herself.
Yeah, hi. My name is Johanna, and currently I work in the Tallinn City Council as environmental and climate advisor. So my job basically is to keep the public interest in mind and help politicians make better choices about the environment. So I would say that's the most simple way I can put that. But I would like to elaborate on very specific examples what Tallinn does, has been doing in the last years later during our discussion.
Good. Well, we will have almost an hour and a half here, so I think we'll have plenty of time to elaborate and also hopefully have a conversation back and forth with the people who are joining us in the audience. So again, to go back to what we are going to be looking at today, the green transition is oftentimes used as shorthand for moving our economies from carbon-intensive economies to ones that use renewable, sustainable energy sources that reduce our environmental footprint and impact of all of our human activities. And then the just green transition, which is one of the terms often used, is making it accessible to all, forming inclusive policies, and supporting marginalized communities. And many of us have studied economics at some level, and there are oftentimes, it's described as winners and losers in every policy choice. I think the focus of having a green transition that's accessible to everyone is to emphasize we have a societal need to lessen our carbon footprint, but also a societal responsibility to make it a process that's inclusive and accessible to everyone. So I think that's what we want to explore today with our representatives from government, from civil society, and from business. Because I think also as part of a successful policy, those critical stakeholders have to work together whenever we're talking about all of the elements of the green transition. Energy sourcing oftentimes is where the conversation starts. Infrastructure is critically important, not just the infrastructure that is on the grand scale, oftentimes talking about the big roads or the Rail Baltica, but also the infrastructure within cities and communities that allow people more easy access, particularly if there are physical challenges or in terms of people who may be blind or deaf being able to navigate their communities. But it also has to do with other elements that we'll talk about. So maybe to start the conversation with Johanna, with the government level, because I think there's an international level which may come out in the discussions. There are EU directives for Estonia as a member of the EU. But when there are national policies, then communities and municipal leaders are oftentimes the planners who make the decisions, particularly within communities, as opposed to the big infrastructure. So could you tell us a little bit, how does Tallinn, as the biggest city, the biggest community in Estonia, how do you try to work with the different stakeholders? You represent the government, but you're obviously working with both the business community and both different neighborhoods, but also different stakeholder communities. Can you describe that process, how you try to plan for that inclusivity as you do the work of this Tallinn city government?
Mm-hmm. That is a great question. And it's not a simple one to answer because these subjects require engagement of so many different parties with so many different interests. The good thing is that oftentimes these solutions that are good for one are oftentimes good for many. So Tallinn has been incorporating green principles in, for example, writing longer-term strategies, for example, for accessibility or for increasing bike transportation, and also taking in laws, like mandatory laws that you really have to abide by. Also, we're doing projects where we engage businesses. So there's a project called Test in Tallinn. So that is something that encourages businesses, especially technology-based businesses, to come and test in Tallinn. Tallinn is really trying to be innovative and trying to be set an example for other cities and also the state. I think a really great example of that was to be the first city to ditch single-use utensils in public events, even events that have tens and thousands of people, like the Song and Dance Festival that was held entirely without single-use plastics. Now there have been music festivals and other events that don't use any single-use plastics. That is a huge step. And now the state has done the same. So the whole country has seen this success story, and I really hope that not only Tallinn, but Estonia as a small dynamic country can be an innovative example for others. Yeah, that's what I really hope.
Well, we're back to sun, so I want to ask a couple of questions of those sitting here before we go on to the next question. First of all, for those of you who are joining us in person, how many of you are Estonian? If I could see some hands. We have Estonians, okay. And then that means the rest of you are non-Estonians. So if someone just wants to shout out, what countries are you from? We don't need the microphone, but where are you from? Colombia, excellent. I know we have at least one American there. What other countries do we have people in the audience from? Lithuania, excellent. Germany. Ukraine, excellent. So we've got people from even several continents. You came from a long way away. And so a couple of other questions before we go back to our other two panelists. Is this a conversation that you have in your countries as well in terms of making the green transition accessible? Yes. Okay, well that's good. So you're here and your country is doing it. How about the rest of you? Is this a conversation you've had? Okay, so we've got people with some experience. And after this first round of questions that we will finish here, I'm going to actually ask you all to start joining the conversation perhaps earlier than planned. So it's not just me asking questions, but the conversation will be broader, those on stage, Estonians, and those in the audience. But to go back to our Estonian panelists, Sven, how would you characterize the main challenges with people with disabilities in terms of when the conversation is about societies using green technologies? How can we better integrate the accessibility part of the conversation, both into the planning, but also the education? Because you mentioned that you were at TalTech. So it's almost really two large questions. But one is, following on from Johanna, the planning side, And then you want to maybe start with that, and then maybe also address on the education side, which is, you're working on the one hand with the people setting the regulations, on the other hand, trying to educate the next generation so that their assumptions might be different.
I would take it broad, as you asked, that many times we hear about that accessibility is something that only meets the needs of few and is very expensive. So I would argue that accessibility in green transition is not a zero-sum game, basically. That, as you said, many people win from this. It's a win-win situation, and to come to your question, these are the challenges that people face. That accessibility is thought of being something very expensive, sometimes maybe strange, maybe a bit fearful, and as you talked last year in this panel also, I think when people are afraid of something, then they don't include people, include people with disabilities in the topics. So I would answer to you in the sense that the more we know about accessibility in the curriculums, in the while we educate engineers and policymakers and all the other key players, the better we are able to take into account all the needs of different people. And just to give the example, we have smart technologies, smart buildings, but are these buildings also accessible to blind people or to wheelchair persons? Or are we saying that, okay, we are doing it zero energy building, but for accessibility we don't have money? And so again, it's it may be a little bit more expensive at first, but in the long run you actually save money if you make environment in the way that the person doesn't need to make other expenses in order to participate in society, in the green environment society.
I am a cyclist. I cycle to work when it's not icy. And Johanna, I know that I've been reading in the media the last week or so, Tallinn is making a big push to add additional cycle lanes. And I'm very grateful that most of my commute is on a dedicated cycle lane. So I know those that use bicycles will be happy to see even more lanes. But when I read that article, and this is also part of a desire to get more people using bicycles and public transport and walk rather than drive, can you describe perhaps how in that city planning element, how is the accessibility issue being addressed? Because obviously you're remaking some of the big pathways for the city for people who, like me, ride bicycles. How is that remaking of the city pathways working for people who might use wheelchairs or need these special bumps and strips because they're blind and they need that additional assistance to cross the streets? Could you describe that process?
Well, it seems like Sven would be better in that. It looks like you have you have experience in that field way more than I do. I have personal experience in cycling since I cycle all year round. Doesn't matter what weather it is, I'm out there showing that it is possible. But I do understand people who don't want to arrive to work all messed up and wet maybe. Yeah, but I would actually direct that question to you. What do you think? And I have that much knowledge about it that Tallinn has been well, famous in a bad way for being accessible. So trying to be making it accessible, but not really succeeding in it. That's my experience.
Yeah, well, there are some factors that objectively are hard for the city, in terms that that we live in a climate where there is oftentimes much rain or snow, which means that it makes it harder to use these accessible solutions, in terms that if you have a snow, you just can't get on the accessible bus, or you can't maybe go to the other side of the road, or
a blind person can't really feel the bumps on the road.
Can't feel the bumps, and even if he or she sees a little bit everything, all the landmarks that he or she was used to are different, and so the weather and climate is a big part in that. But having said that, there are still possibilities to make things more accessible, in terms that we do not use the most inexpensive solutions that maybe don't work every time. We don't use the elevator that only works with a key, for example, because everyone doesn't have a key. We have such examples in Tallinn where Tallinn has said previously that you have to ask a key from the local disability society, for example, which this includes all the people from abroad. So we need to use solutions that don't use a lot of energy, but are still usable to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. I feel like those sound-based helpers, helping mechanisms, they work all year round very well, and they have been emerging to the city more and more, which makes me happy. But I feel like I want to point out that the public outrage that has been taking place regarding the cycling paths and the well-being of cyclists has been really effective, because I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons, of course, the climate as well, but the political pressure, or the pressure from the public to the politicians has been working really well. And I don't think it was very nice to shame politicians that much, but of course it was not. It was a tad shameful from the last city government to just before the elections to just pour red paint on the cycling paths and then call it a day. Basically, that happened a few years ago, which was kind of like creating an illusion of something that something had been done, but in reality, the structure of the city had not been changed. There was just red paint on on the floor, and it didn't really make things safer. It didn't really make the city didn't give better quality to it, really. So it was a very, in terms of money, expensive and also very polluting solution. But I am happy to see that now we do have a cycling strategy, like a real document that has been written by specialists, and that is being taken into account. And things are being done, I see, as fast as possible. Building roads is not fast, especially in Estonia, where our season, where it is possible to build anything, is short. So, yeah, these things take a little bit of time.
So, Larissa, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. In your self-introduction, you noted a number of different identities that you have. First of all, working in Ida-Virumaa, which oftentimes is cited as the policy focus for economic green transition. There's a Just Transition Fund. Your company, Fortaco, got one of the first grants, and you're building, as you explained to me last year, expanding your production lines, employing more people now than you did several years ago. So in some ways, your company has benefited from the policy monetary support of finding jobs for an investment in Ida-Virumaa, which is not oil shale mining based. So one is your company. Two, as I said, the location, Narva as opposed to Tallinn, very different challenges for the region and the city. And then three, you mentioned your role in the Women Entrepreneurs Clubs, and so that role of the critical role of women in the workforce. So there are lots of different layers. So I'll let you sort of maybe start with anything you want, but could you explain a little bit of what makes the green transition more challenging in Narva than Tallinn, and what are the main issues that are discussed in Narva? Is it just employment, or is this issue also about ensuring that there aren't losers, even as everyone, I think, understands that the region and the country is transitioning away from the oil shale industry as the backbone of energy production and also the backbone of employment traditionally in Ida-Virumaa? Over to you.
Yes, thank you. So this is absolutely right that Narva and Ida-Virumaa region, it's in the focus of government now, and we are having a lot of initiatives which are connected to Green Transition Fund, and quite many companies participate in this program, and they are expanding their production and or their business. And one of the main prerequisite conditions is that what they are doing according to this program should be according to new and very high environmental standards. So all the machines what we are buying, all the processes what we include, they have to be really green, so with less consumption of energy, with less emission, and with other sustainable practices. And this is, of course, very actual program, and but also one of the challenge which is connected to them. It's really bureaucratical, and to really be successful in this program, it takes a lot of time, efforts, and also, I would say, energy to answer all the questions, to present all the necessary documentation, and to fulfill all the criteria. For example, for us, for Fortaco, it took 1 year and 2 months. Basically from the beginning to the end of the process to be successful in terms of getting this grant. So this bureaucracy and this heavy regulations, it's one of basically the challenge. I would say the second challenge, of course, it's that some jobs disappear, for example, from Eesti Energy or Enefit Power, and of course it's a challenge for the region to create other jobs, most probably which will be based on these factories or companies based on more green practices, and Fortaco is one of them. It's good news that in Ida-Viru we have quite many new companies appearing. For example, Magnet Factory, which will be opening up next year and creating more than 350 jobs. We also have Aquafor, who is producing water filters and who is also expanding their productions, but also production of water filters, so the clean water is also like the green area. And also, if you go inside the production, you see how clean it is, how sustainable it is from environmental perspective. Then we also have a company called Fren, who is also part of this Green Transition Fund, and they are engaged in wind turbine production. So they are also contributing to this green transition program in Ida-Virumaa. But also coming back to this Eesti Energy or Enefit, actually it's very interesting, but they are also getting green step by step. Of course they have this Enefit Green, but also Enefit Power. Last year they actually got the prize as the best environmental project of Ida-Virumaa because they started to recycle tires and they start to use these products from the recycling as a source of energy for their operations, and they're doing that in really green way. So actually even Enefit Power, who is basically is a little bit under pressure in terms of environment, and most probably they are going to lose their job, but they are also step by step become green. So it's really good, some good news for us. If you're talking about other challenges, and of course financial barrier, it's one of critical elements. Because we all remember that some 1.5 years ago, how the prices for electricity skyrocketed, and it was such a big threat for businesses how to find a way to survive. And of course, we started to elaborate what kind of means we can implement to a little bit mitigate this higher cost. And we started to consider, for example, solar panels, and so on, but the payback from the solar panels in more than 20 years. So actually, of course it's green, of course it's benefits to environment, but when we start to calculate the money, we can see that still traditional sources of energy, they are more economical, justified. Coming back to business and, for example, heavy industry where we operate. So we actually produce different steel structures for equipment which operates underground, for example, for underground machines, for forestry machines, for material handling machines, and so on. And this area is very much step by step turning into the green direction. For example, together with our suppliers of steel and together with customers, we are step by step start to use steel which is produced without CO2 emissions. So, which is produced either with the help of electricity or with such a process which generates hydrogen as as an emission during the process, but not CO2. So it's quite a big step in terms of making overall production greener, but also the machines, the new machines what we are producing, they also operate not on, for example, diesel engines, but they also start to operate on electric engines, for example, for agriculture, for material handling, and for example, some small tractors what we are producing for construction equipment and for agriculture segments. So step by step, this industry is becoming really different what we so far have experienced. So if I answer, so it's a lot of things, but
Good. So thank you very much, Larissa. So that's our sort of first round of initial comments from our panelists. I'd like to open it up and bring in some of you who have experience and may have questions for our government, society/education, and business reps about making the green transition both work and accessible for everybody. So do we have anyone in the audience who wants to offer the first question, not from the stage? Does anyone want to raise their hand? We've got the microphone back here. Friends from Germany, do you have a question? You said you'd been working on this for years. Any comment or question? And if people could just say their name and where they're from before asking the question, so our panelists know who their discussant is.
Yeah, Patrick Erba, my name. I'm German, but I live already for 11 years in Estonia and know quite well what is going on in Estonia. But just as I heard, to go green, I would try to, in Germany, the experience is to combine, for example, if you build new buildings which are greener or you renovate old ones, to include this topic of barrier-free into the planning from the very beginning. So you have the one goal, but you hit two. And I think you have to think more a little bit integrative, and this is still something I miss, at least in Estonia, to have more an integrative approach. Every discipline itself does a very good job, but only if all work together, you can really win the prize. And I think this is maybe the one experience in Germany. Everything's slow there, but once they move, and they don't stop, even if they move slowly. And in the end, you reach your goal, and this is quite often what happens here, that you hit the wall because you were too fast, and then it takes a long time until you take the next approach. Mm-hmm. So maybe just as an experience here from Germany and Estonia, and maybe to try to integrate more. Just for example, I'd been involved in constructing building in the public sector. We had no go-go is it in Estonia, with handicapped people who were taking a look at the designs from their point of view. And we saved so much money and trouble afterwards. That was amazing. And maybe if this doesn't exist so far, this is just an idea. It doesn't cost much to invite people who are directly affected by this, and they are very much willing to share their experiences. And this is invaluable, actually, this feedback.
Well, thank you for that. I'll give both Johanna and Sven a chance to comment on that, because I think that's really at the heart of what we're trying to get at. The United States Embassy is going to have our own opportunity to go through that process. Our embassy is located in the same building that we started using in 1930, when it was built as one of the most modern buildings in Tallinn at the time. And we're still there 94 years later. We were kicked out, obviously, in 1940 by the Soviet occupation forces, but came back in 1992. And we've bought land on Suursaadik Street, a very appropriate name for the American embassy. And we are in the design phase now with U.S. architects. We still are waiting for the final design approval also from the Tallinn authorities. But we have our own standards. Last week was the anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act. So every building that the U.S. government meets, and actually buildings in the United States, have to meet a wider range of accessibility issues, whether it's ramps and accessibility for the floors, the bumps for those that can't see, the sound sessions. And so that all will be integrated. At the same time, for at least 10 years now, we have this LEED standard where all U.S. government buildings have to meet much higher energy efficient design than we had in the past. So those will be very important considerations, both on the low use of energy, well designed for environmental purposes, but also the accessibility issues. And so our design process is very different than it would have been 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So on the issue from what we will do in consultation with the city of Tallinn, we're discussing about what makes the property green enough. We also do green roofs, which under the US system counts as green space and reduction of the normal emissions from, say, concrete and steel. But we're discussing with Tallinn whether the roof counts as green space for our footprint. But how would you describe, let's start with Johanna and then Sven, again, going back to this design process and ensuring that the stakeholders' voice is incorporated in the design in a way that not just makes it more functional, but actually ultimately over the life cycle of a building can actually save money. So do you want to, from the city municipal planning perspective, what would you say on that side?
It is key to bring in the local communities and the stakeholders way earlier in the process, not when the design has already been done and then we do some little details maybe here and there, and then that we make the main design and then we just add a few bumps there and a little maybe sound mechanism there, but rather bring them in the first place and really think about the goal of this object that we're designing or the space that we're designing. What do we want to achieve and who is it for? And really think about it in a wider way, that maybe if you don't see these people around, maybe people in wheelchairs, but why are they not there? Because they do exist, but why are they not already there? Why are they not participating? And why can't people with different abilities take part in the society as much as others can? So in that way, yes, I do believe that bringing in people earlier in the process would be very helpful. Tallinn has been trying to do it in different projects. We also have an app called Avalinn, where people can add their ideas, what they want to make better in their area. There also was a project called Rahvakogu. I don't know how I could translate that, but maybe like a local council that comes together from randomly picked citizens. So it's a group of people, of like random citizens, whatever gender, age, ethnicity, and they put forward tens of ideas that they all agreed upon. They found a balance where they could agree, and they gave them to the city council to decide on. And most of them were accepted, and many of those wishes or ideas or proposals were about engagement. People wanted to be more informed and more engaged in the process of how the area where they live in, how does it work, how is it created. So they want to get into it. And I really hope that Tallinn, having accepted those ideas, then realizes them.
Sven, Patrick seemed to echo one of your initial points, so another chance to say a little bit more about that issue of having the stakeholder voice in the design phase as a way, even as Estonia pushes standards for lowering the environmental impact, it improves the accessibility. So what else would you like to say on that?
Yes, that was a very, very good point, and I very much agree on the seeing the big picture and about the integration of different stakeholders' knowledge, because what we see in Estonia very many times is that there are people still think that, okay, this is a this is a public building, so okay, we make it accessible, but oh no, this is like a private building, or this this floor is there are only probably disabled people are not coming here, so we will not make this accessible, this floor. Or we have like companies that make homes, that make buildings for living, that still are not that much accessible. So what happened then is that when the purpose of the building changes, or the person who bought the home gets sick or something happens, then you have to start renovating and building it different, which means that the carbon print gets very big, and the person who needs the renovation feels like he or she is a burden, that they must do it because of me. I have to wait. I just want to say that it's a question of not only the carbon print, but also dignity. Do we use the solutions that leave the person with dignity and easy moving and easy access of information, and this is thing that we sometimes forget, that if we start thinking about accessibility at the last minute, for example, we got a disabled worker, and now we start changing something. Then it's a question of dignity and life quality and self-realization. I myself have had that kind of experience where I was not happy until I was able to the lift was installed, and I was able to move all floors, and I was able to go to a colleague's cabinet, because I found myself very unhappy about the notion that all my colleagues have to come to my cabinet if we need to discuss something or have a meeting or something. I found it very important for me that I would be able to go to their cabinet, so that not everyone has to run for me, and because then you think, oh, I'm such a burden. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but you do. So,
it's not only about people with disabilities. You could be in a problematic situation very easily. You could have an accident and be on crutches, and suddenly you can't move. You don't know when that happens. A bee is loving me at the moment.
we have a new friend.
Yeah, we're really green here. But also seniors, so like elderly people can't move around that easily. And we have a huge problem, especially in city environments, in higher buildings, in apartment buildings, that older people can't get out of their homes. They literally can't move down up and down the stairs. So they need major help, and most of apartment buildings, they don't have an elevator, so they rely heavily on external support. And again, it's a question of dignity, and well, if you can't get out of your house, that lowers your quality of life very quickly and very drastically. So it's not really only a question of disabled people, which it is a huge part of, but not only. I mean, everyone gets old one day.
Just a quick point that if we talk about old buildings, it's a very, very big problem. But what I see as a problem as well is that we are also talking sometimes about new buildings that are very cost effective and very energy effective, but new apartment buildings should not be inaccessible in the way that then disabled people buy them. They have to use like parking elevator to get to their apartment, as I know some people do. They buy such an apartment building that they, even if they don't have a car, they always go down there and then they get into their apartment because from the usual entrance they can't get in. So.
Yeah, please,
also,
Larissa.
maybe I also comment that it's really critical things what we're discussing now about this accessibility and so on, because maybe in the beginning we don't think about accessibility, everything is good with your health, yeah? And for us, for production companies, it's important to ensure the safe conditions for employees, to make sure that we by any means not create the conditions that people become to have some injury or to become disabled. But as Johanna said, there could be some circumstances when, for example, you can have an accident outside of work. And actually, it's just a fresh example from our business that at the same time, two critical persons, they one got accident driving by motorcycle, and the second had a surgery on his knee. And they are really two critical persons in terms of putting up our new operations live according to deadline. And if we don't do that, then we are missing the promises with our customers. And what we did, we just ensured that both of them disabled, they came to work, and by that we were checking, are these, all our conditions, are they suitable for people who basically cannot move freely. And for us it's a bit like a good checking point as well, because I need to admit that it's not so actively on the agenda. But yeah, it's really crucial.
Larissa, when Johanna and Sven were both talking about dignity, I was thinking in the broader discussion about economic transitions in the United States, the word dignity oftentimes comes up in whole communities that lost thousands of manufacturing jobs or mining jobs, so our so-called Rust Belt, and those communities were oftentimes hollowed out in terms of high-paid manufacturing jobs. And again, this is the transition that Ida-Viru is going through right now. The mining jobs are going away. You mentioned Fortaco is expanding energy. The reference to the magnet factory, for those who don't know, this is the Neo Performance Materials. It's going to be rare earth batteries that are important for the electric vehicles and wind turbine batteries as part of the renewable economies going forward. So 350 jobs at a high-tech will be the first such factory outside of Asia, critical to secure supply chains. And yet, there's still going to be this challenge for workers who have been doing something their entire lives, and then they feel the loss of the type of work that they created or they felt that they created. I know there's real pride when I go to communities around Narva, most recently in Sillamäe. They were very proud of what they created over the last 60 years. So as a managing director of a company which is hiring more people in a region that is having to transition its workforce, what are some of the ways that businesses and, in this case, governments can work together to provide retraining? What should be the targets? When I last was in Ida-Virumaa last month, I stopped by the Kodjokvi school, which businesses in the high-tech industry are doing sort of second career retraining in Jokvi, teaching people of all backgrounds to become coders. And that allows them to transition from whatever they were doing to joining the IT sector. Are there other ideas that, from your perch as a managing director who has to hire more people, as somebody who's part of a community that's going through transition, what other suggestions might you have for helping your city, your region make this transition in ways that are inclusive to everyone?
Yes.
And again, people, feel free to move to the back of the stage to stay dry as the rain starts again.
Yes, of course, it's a very crucial question about if people are losing job in one area, how to make sure that they have the right to have a decent job in another area. So it's also the question of integrity or inclusivity of people who have issue with employability or employment at the moment. And of course, one thing, critical thing, what we can do is, of course, to retrain these people, to ensure that people have another qualification to meet the requirements and to find another job. And in Daviru, it's a lot of programs now run, not only by government, but also locally by companies. I know that in many companies with whom we are working together in Narva, in Davirumaa, they are doing their internal trainings and offering people new skills, trainings opportunities. And of course, it's not only about the job itself, but also that the job must be well paid. So it's also about the good salary. And when we are talking about this green transition and green just transition fund, we also create the jobs with roughly 20% higher in terms of salary than average salary in Estonia or in the segment where we operate. And this is we are doing by means that it is not just a simple job, but this is a job which includes a lot of value add inside. And by this value add, what we are offering to our customers, to supply chain, by this complexity, we also can offer higher salaries to people. Another thing is that the standards and requirements to environment, operational environment is also increased. For example, how to make a job more safe, more ecological friendly, more sustainable. So these are also things what we have to discuss together on together with government, together with different institutions, and of course together with businesses.
So if we're staying, and hopefully people can hear us continuing to speak, I'm glad you've moved to the dry space. It's getting so loud with the rain, it's hard for us even to hear ourselves. But Johanna, could you talk a little bit about the government side as opposed to working with societal stakeholders with business in terms of the planning cycle? The Just Transition Fund is funded from the EU, but on, say, a municipal level, how does a city like Tallinn work with businesses to try to achieve the sort of more accessibility in these projects, that communities work together with societal stakeholders, but also business?
So how does Tallinn as a city, Tallinn city government help or collaborate with businesses to create more accessibility?
Yeah.
Well, I would say the biggest is, of course, creating laws. And we were talking about creating spaces and designing spaces that are inclusive and accessible. I'm really hoping that Tallinn takes more measures and more mandatory measures, such as, we have fire safety measures that we have to do, but we don't have laws that Tallinn would really abide by when it comes to accessibility. I feel like it's more of a nice nice thing that it's like how can I translate? It's like a donation of some sort. It's like look at us, we're doing something good. So it's not yet regarded as something basic, I would say. We're not yet there, and that's what I would love to see. So I would say we should have more ambition in it, and I can't really see many steps where we would be cooperating with the private sector. As like we should be doing way more, I feel like.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, and you want to say?
Just a comment that our regulation is built up in such a way that if you don't abide by them in terms of accessibility, you don't get fined or a very good public. Big public outrage or something like that, because people like think, oh, this is something that concerns so little people, and also it's very expensive. So this is and also I wanted to comment that it is also important that a person with a disability believes that he or she can still contribute to the to the society, because when I talk about myself, I also already believe that, and thanks to my parents and my school and my friends. And then I was strong enough to go and ask, okay, I would like to come to work here or participate here, or please give me accessibility, or can you come and help me? But if you are not, if you do not have this knowledge and this inner strength that you believe in yourself, as I believe many minors and maybe older people in Ida-Virumaa sometimes are, that they have done this job all their lives. Now their health is a little bit worse, and now they can't imagine themselves doing anything else, and what can they do at all, and maybe also the new potential employers don't believe that they can do something. So this is also a big part of it, that especially when you don't know Estonian, you might be in a lack of information bubble, so that you don't even know what you could do if you are disabled and what you can't do.
Can you all hear us? I'm just wondering. You can, okay. So it looks like we have 3 or 4 people still sitting there, but I don't know, do we have our microphone person here? Because I wanted to give it, oh, we do have a microphone back here. Would anyone sitting under the stage like to ask a question or make a sort of comments? Again, not having just the people on stage doing all the talking. Anyone else? In the absence of anyone, Patrick is going to join us again. Patrick, over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I cannot let it go, seems like that. Just one comment, as I heard several times, that this accessibility or inclusion of handicapped people is so expensive. This is a wrong approach, in my mind. It is much more expensive to exclude this group of people from the society. So it's just the point of view or the attitude to make it as a new standard. So just to this point, and concerning Ida-Virumaa, I think Germany is a very good example how a transition can happen in the very western part of Germany, very much into coal mining for, I don't know, 200 years or something like this. And well, I grew up in the 80s, and there I know they were on strike and protesting that everything was closed. Go there nowadays. I think the transition worked. So just to give you hope, that as well in Ida-Virumaa it is possible, to my mind even much easier from the volumes we talk about, because in the western part of Germany they live around 20 million people, and the resistance was much higher. Arguments were similar. We have done this all our lives. Fathers had been doing it, grandfathers had been working there. What shall we do now? So the challenges are quite similar, and I think I'm very optimistic that this will happen. But of course there must be the will, and then as well not only European money, but as well smart people here in Estonia. We have enough of them, and to make it happen.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, okay, we have right here, if you just want, right below you. Let us know your name, where you're from, and your question.
Hi, my name is Alina. I'm originally from Ukraine, but I've been living in Canada for 12 years. And coming from Ukraine and know how bad the accessibility is there, and witnessing the accessibility and the laws there in North America, I'm just wondering why in Estonia or like in Ukraine, it's not normal, it's not a part of building code, because in North America it is, and if you're not doing like according to that building code, you actually would be fined and you wouldn't be allowed to build that building. So I'm just curious why it's still not part of the law. I know you talked a little bit about it, just kind of curious.
So, Johanna, do you want to sort of answer that, at least even though you might be in a different part of the city government, but the issue of where is the building codes now for Estonia? Again, North America, we're sort of 35 years into that being required to be part of building, which 35 years ago it was new. Now we're a generation past it. So the presumptive right is that anything built has all of this integrated into the plans. And as two North American-based people, we're not sure exactly where the planning requirement is. How would you describe it at this point? And then maybe Sven as well, because I know you have an NGO. So where do you think, how would you assess where the building code requirements are?
Mm-hmm. I feel like these types of developments rely heavily on personal advocacy. That's what you talked about, that it really depends on how much you personally are willing to stand up for yourself on each step of the way. And it really gets tiresome to just live your life. It's so difficult in such a difficult way. So it's a constant fight. And I feel like maybe in the States, this advocacy and these advocacy groups, they have been stronger, because in Estonia, especially during the Soviet times, well, these groups were just cut out, like they were made like non-existent, like they were not visible, so they quasi didn't exist. So I think that's the background of why maybe in Eastern Europe, like in Ukraine and Estonia, accessibility is kind of a new thing. It's still kind of a new thing. And the quality of it is still not good enough. And these types of things in the building requirements are oftentimes still voluntary. They're not mandatory. So also with cycling parking spaces, in comparison to car parking spaces, like we are required by a law, like the local governments are required by a law to build a certain amount of parking spaces around different buildings. There's a quota, but there's no quota for wheelchairs to put them somewhere. Like there's no place to put wheelchairs, or how to get up even, or then bicycles. There's no bicycle parking spaces. It's voluntary. It's kind of a nice thing to have, but it's not a must-have. In my personal eyes, it should be a must-have, and we're moving in that direction. But yeah, we're not yet there.
So Sven, you are also a founding member of an NGO, Pane on Meeled Proovile.
Yeah, Challenger Senses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously you're a personal advocate. Do you want to talk about, Johanna said sometimes it takes individuals to stand up for their rights. How about in terms of organizations like yours or others? How can they be intermediaries to advocate for these standards if it's not absolutely required by law, but it's what society and communities need to be inclusive? Because going back to Patrick's point, Germany may have had 20 million people affected by the transition. Estonia needs the value-added participation of every single person. I go around the country, I always hear, whether I'm talking to managing directors like Larissa, mayors, school directors, hospital directors, everybody says, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough, doctors, we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough people in the IT sector, which means we don't have enough people in the forestry sector. So the issue isn't just giving somebody access as an individual, which is important. It's making sure that their contributions to the community and society are unleashed, because every community in Estonia needs more, essentially, participation. So how do NGOs help get that perspective to people that make decisions? Like your organization, do you want to describe what you try to do?
Well, there are two kind of things that you can do. You can do like hard way using court cases and litigation, and then you can do it the soft way, where you are just trying to convince enough people or give them experience that makes them aware of the problem and convinces them that it's important. And the Challenger Senses NGO does the soft way in the sense that if you look at our Facebook page, we have created simulations where people without disability can experience the way people with disability get information and also move around. So that you can walk with a guide dog or do some sign language or go through with obstacles while sitting in a wheelchair, whether it's a forest or very bad or a very bad angled ramp or something like that, so that people can understand better. When we do it in a university, then these are future engineers and future policymakers and future businessmen who may then make better choices when they are in a position to decide. But to answer your question a bit more, then I would say that in the same time the core, I don't know how much court practice you in USA have in the Disability Act, but we do not have very much. We still have had some things that, for example, in a big apartment building where your neighbors are the co-owners of the building, until recently the neighbors were able to restrict building ramps or other things, saying that no, it's not beautiful enough, it's ugly, we don't want this here. Then we had a court case where it was said if you own the apartment, your neighbors cannot restrict you to get access to your building or something you owe. So and the same thing is about other stuff too. That we have a kind of court agreement right now whether or not some local municipalities like personal assistance and transportation, can you use it only in the area of the local municipality, or also in European Union and elsewhere in Estonia. So we have 79 local municipalities. They all understand this legislation, this accessibility legislation of the buildings a bit different. They all have differently educated officers that are looking at are controlling whether or not this is correctly built. And this is where the problem lies, that they very differently understand the legislation also.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I saw a hand waving, but that may have been just to a friend. Is there anyone else back here who has a question? I'm looking mainly at the people sitting here. I know we have one person left outside. Any other either comments or questions for our panelists? So you have a chance to also participate. Questions? Comments? We've got about 10 minutes left. So going back to Larissa, and again, because Ida-Virumaa is really, again, the center point of a lot of the green transition, how do you see the situation looking in 5 to 10 years from now? Again, there's a certain period where Estonia has committed for the energy transition. At the same time, you've described the businesses that are taking advantage of grants. Ida-Virumaa faces a demographic challenge. Young people are mainly being educated in Tartu and Tallinn, and when I talk to the mayors, they say they have a real challenge getting people to come back. And TalTech has a center in Kohtla-Järve, Tartu University has a center in Narva, but still this issue of educating the next generation and keeping the talent around for the communities is another challenge, not just people transitioning out of the traditional employment sectors. So when you look, as you work in Ida-Virumaa, how do you see that transition shaping the communities for the next 5 or 10 years?
I think it's a little bit different if you look forward in 5 years or 10 and 15 years, yeah? Because in 5 years, I think the initiatives what we run now will be completed, and the new factories, the new companies, they will be operating the full mode, and hopefully attracting the people, because the salaries which are offered, they are actually quite good ones. Also, more and more companies, they cooperate with universities. So if students are now physically in Tallinn, so they're also interested to come back because we have also the agreements and we pay some, some scholarship for the students. So after finishing the university, they just come and work for Ida-Viru companies. I also discussed recently with mayor of Narva and also vice mayor of Narva, and they're actually quite optimistic in terms of the future of Narva, because it's a lot of things which are done in Narva, but not only in our town, it's other towns in Ida-Virumaa. We have new schools, we have a new hospital which is coming, we also have new kindergartens, we have new roads, new infrastructure, and also the new companies offering high-paid jobs. So we discussed, and basically their outlook is quite optimistic, that people should come back and should stay. So this is actually their utmost target, that we don't lose so much people from our region. But statistics shows that number of people is declining from Narva and there, or Ida-Virumaa, and they are leaving to Tallinn or to Tartu or abroad and so on. I know quite many people who work abroad and don't come back to work or to come back to Estonia. But yeah, I think in 5 years, and also all these requirements which are put by sustainability regulations, by 2030, we have to basically achieve all this. And it will also benefit to the business level and to society as well. So I think it should bring quite a lot of benefits to our region. And I would also tend to agree with Narva mayor that I very much hope that in our region and in Narva, the situation will be more optimistic than it seems to be now. Yeah.
We don't have anyone from Pärnu here, but I would say outside the Tallinn and Tartu areas, which are the real engines of economic growth and are pulling in population from around the country, Pärnu mayor has had I would say, the most optimistic, enthusiastic vision for that 5 to 10 year future. He sees offshore wind parks being developed, green hydrogen, onshore infrastructure coming through Pärnu. And he's confident that Pärnu will be the third city, not Narva, in 10 years. So we'll see in 10 years whether his vision, which is really based on the new green economy, offshore and onshore, is able to be realized based on infrastructure, energy infrastructure, storage infrastructure with hydrogen as the storage mechanism, not batteries, and then Rail Baltica and additional roads as a drawing force for Estonian workforce of the future. So Johanna, what is, if you're looking 5 to 10 years in this green transition, hopefully planning and building in accessibility as part of the planning process, how would you see the Tallinn livingscape, the landscape, infrastructure, and building in accessibility? What would be your prediction for 5, 10 years from now for Tallinn as a more accessible, livable, greener city?
I remain optimistic. And I feel like today's city government really has understood the seriousness of the task. First, we have a climate crisis going on. It affects people's health, it affects the economy, and it has, well, very long-term severe effects. So we have to take drastic measures now, and I feel like the city government understands the seriousness and the urgency of this problem. Yeah, so I'm keeping my how do you say, like
your thumbs held?
Yeah.
So, and do you think that the physical transformation of Tallinn over the next decade will both be evident to the eye and evident to people who need more accessibility?
Absolutely. There are now very practical measures taken regarding transportation. For example, there's new tramways being built. So there's less need for personal cars. The private sector is also putting chipping in with reducing the need for personal cars by offering options for short and medium-term rentals. Also bringing in micro-mobility options. Of course, building these new roads that are more designed for different modes of transportation, not only personal cars, and then maybe a line for public transportation and then pedestrians, but rather mixing it up more and bringing the speed limits down, because that has shown great effects on reducing emissions, creating more safety in the city, also improving the air quality and then reducing noise, thus creating better health for people because they can move around in better. First of all, move around, which is a big thing. So the environment brings people two better choices already intuitively. And I see these choices and measures being taken so that this could happen.
Sven, we have 2 minutes. I'm going to give the last word to you.
Thank you. I would say that if we are able to, while creating this climate-conscious, energy sustainable future and smart technologies, if we are able to do it in such a way that it will not be a way to push people with disabilities to the screens, that it's easier not to go outside but to use the helmets. If we do not do that, then I would be also very optimistic, because just saying, to give you an example, 15 years ago when we started these simulations, then there were some students from Ida-Virumaa who said, oh no, I won't sit in the wheelchair because it's a bad omen. And now they don't say this anymore, because diversity is something that's normal. When I go in Tallinn, for example, 15 years ago, when I was moving around with wheelchair, there were young boys who were in front of me, and one said to another, move away, there is a wheelchair who wants to pass. Now they say, move around, there is a person who wants to pass. If you understand what it psychologically means, that the person sees different things are important to him. So, and I have to believe that although we have this insufficient funds, as you said, that policymakers do understand that this is not the accessibility is not the place where to cut, because it gives dignity and opportunities to us all.
So I think that's a great way to end it. So I think if I could ask those of you who've braved the rain to thank Sven, Johanna, and Larissa for this discussion. Aitäh.
Thank you.